Final Fantasy VII On the Way to a Smile. Episode Denzel. In the end, it wasn't Meteor that came to shatter Denzel's peace, but a furious torrent of white light. The life stream released by the planet may have effectively destroyed Meteor, but the dense life energy also inflicted untold destruction upon the world of mankind. The Chosen Day. Denzel and Ruby were in bed, trying to sleep despite the howling wind outside. Even for a gale, the noise was terrific. Then the entire house began to rattle. This must be the end, thought Denzel. He hoped it would be over quickly. The tremors grew more violent, and the noise swelled to such a roar that a train could have been passing right outside the window. Ruby held him tight, and he squeezed his eyes shut, trying to brave it out, but 5 minutes proved to be his limit. "Ruby, I'm scared!" Just as Ruby got up to turn on the lamp, a blinding white light shone right through the drawn floral curtains. It was as if the house were being swallowed up by the sun. "Get under the blankets and stay here." Ruby left the bedroom. The house shook even harder, and the vase of fake flowers on the dresser tumbled to the floor. Denzel jumped out of bed and went after her. She was in the living room, staring at the window, the one he had broken and that she had covered with the tarp. The tarp was swelling like a balloon, looking as if it was about to burst open. Ruby leaped forward to hold the tarp on with both hands. "Denzel, get back to bed." He was trembling uncontrollably and his feet were glued to the floor. "I'm the one who broke the window. This is all my fault. Bad things are happening because of me." Ruby dropped the tarp and darted toward him. Denzel clung to her even as she forced him back into the bedroom. At that same moment, the tarp blew away and the dazzling light flooded the room. She slammed the door shut just before she screamed. "Ruby!" Denzel yanked on the doorknob. "Denzel! Don't!" But he pulled it open and found Ruby standing there with her back turned to him, splayed against the doorframe to keep him in. "Close it!" Past her, he could see the tendrils of light darting and twisting like snakes, striking the walls and bouncing off in every direction. "This thing's not in the monster encyclopedia," he thought. "I have to run and tell an adult. No, in this home, I have to do the fighting." "Ruby!" he cried as the tendrils seemed to lunge at her. He let out a short groan. Slender fibers of light surged through the gaps between Ruby and the doorframe, into the bedroom. Ruby crumpled to the floor, and in the same moment, Denzel was flung back by the radiance. He blacked out. I don't know how long I was lying there. When I woke up, the whole house was a wreck. Ruby was lying on the floor. I called her name, and she opened her eyes a little. She said she was glad I was okay, but she said it so quietly I could barely hear her. Then she said she wanted to hold my hand. So I held out my hand and she took it, but her grip was so weak, it was like her hand wasn't there or something. She said her son's hands had gotten too big for her to hold. That made me glad I was little. Then she asked me how it looked outside. I was scared to look, but I went out anyway. It was morning and the whole area was just like our house. A wreck. Denzel stared down at the table as he spoke. Reeve listened with his eyes closed. Outside, Denzel turned to look back at their house and saw that none of the windows had any glass left in them. He turned in a circle, taking in the rest of the scene. The other houses were in no better condition. Smashed windows, collapsed roofs, caved-in walls. It would have happened anyway, he realized. It would still have gotten in and wrecked everything, even if the window wasn't broken. As quickly as the thought came, he became mad at himself for thinking it. Ruby tried to protect me and got hurt badly because of it, and I'm trying to pretend it had nothing to do with me. He went back inside. Ruby was sleeping. She looked so serene and peaceful lying there. It made him uneasy, and he shook her shoulder. "Ruby!" But she showed no signs of waking. "Ruby!" He shook her again harder. A thread of black liquid trickled from the edge of her mouth. It looked like the mark of death to him, and he hastily wiped it off. But it was oozing out from beneath her hair, too. Denzel felt sick to his stomach. He staggered out of the house, seized with dread. "Mom! Dad! Help!" he screamed at the top of his lungs. After that, he called out for everyone he knew. All the names he could think of. No one came, and so there was nothing to do but sob. "Hey, little guy! What are you crying about?" A big hand grabbed Denzel's head and turned his face up. A great big man with a black mustache was standing over him. A small truck was parked beyond, with 10 or so men and women sitting on the cargo bed. "You shouldn't be out here. They told everyone to go get shelter down in the slums. Didn't you see it on TV?" Denzel felt like the man would yell at him if he didn't give a good reply. "I haven't been watching TV," he managed through his sobs. "Damn, what's wrong with you people? We didn't know. We thought we'd be okay. It's the same story with a whole lot of you." The men and women in the truck looked at their feet sheepishly. "So where's your folks?" "Ruvy's in the house." The man's name was Gaskin. He helped me bury Ruvy in the backyard. The people in the truck pitched in too. We buried her son's books and her sewing kit with her. Everyone thought it was weird that the soil in the backyard was so deep. Usually you hit the plate right away, they said. Perhaps she'd meant to raise vegetables. A lot of elderly folk from the country do that, you know. I think it was flowers," Denzel replied, looking down at the floral print handkerchief. "Her house was full of flower patterns, and she had lots of fake flowers too, but I think she wanted real ones. She lived in Midgard because her son worked for Shinra, but she missed the countryside, and she wanted a nice place with soil, where she could plant some flowers and... Sorry, this is boring, huh?" But Reeve was hanging on to every word. The truck carrying Denzel and the others eventually stopped at the departure terminal for slumbound trains. Gaskin spoke up. "The trains aren't running. No prospects of them starting up again either. But if we're lucky, we should be able to walk down the tracks all the way to the surface." "Is the city gonna collapse?" someone asked. "Your guess is as good as mine, but either way it's going to be safer down on the ground, right?" Then Gaskin turned to Denzel. "Watch your step, all right? Everyone's tired and at the end of their rope. You gotta look out for yourself." Gaskin got back into his truck and made a U-turn and drove away. Masses of people were clustered in the station. That white light had taken its toll on all of Midgar, and those whose homes were ruined, and those who were afraid the city might fall, had come here to flee. However, now that they were actually here, more than a few of them were having second thoughts. It looked like a dangerous proposition, clambering down those tracks. No one was celebrating being saved from Meteor. Instead, they were angry about the botched and delayed evacuation order, and they were looking for someone to blame. "Good thing Dad's not here," Denzel thought. He squirmed through the crowd to the platform, where he jumped down onto the tracks to join a growing stream of people. He had no idea what would come next, but Denzel figured no one had given him any advice besides Gaskin, so he might as well do what the big man said. Below his feet, between the cross ties of the tracks, suspended on their steel supports, he could see all the way down to the slums. If he slipped here, it would be a long fall to the ground. The tracks descended in a spiral winding around Midgar. It would be a sickeningly long journey, but Denzel put his head down, forgot about how far he had to go, and concentrated on making one careful step after another. Suddenly, the crowd came to a halt in front of him. A dead end? Denzel pushed his way through the legs of the grown-ups to see what was causing the bottleneck. There was a little boy, maybe 3 years old, perched on one of the cross ties, kicking his feet in the empty air below him. One of the adults spoke to him. "Where's your mommy?" Out of the blue, the boy started wailing and yelling, "Mommy!" and stared down past his legs at the ground. He was on the verge of losing his balance when Denzel darted forward and grabbed his arm. Suddenly, there were gasps from the crowd. "Hey, that kid's marked!" one said. "Don't touch him, you'll catch it." What are they talking about? He didn't understand. "Hey, get him out of the way!" someone shouted. Seeing no other choice, Denzel dragged the boy to the side, where there was sturdier footing atop the iron sheets that connected the rails to the steel supports. He wondered why the grown-ups weren't helping, but then he saw the reason. The boy's back was wet with the sticky black fluid. With the path cleared, people began to move again. The boy kept crying out in pain and screaming for his mother, but Denzel was thinking about the grown-ups' warning, "You'll catch it." He began to get angry at the boy for being in the way and for crying, and for maybe making him sick. But then he thought of Ruvy, and how he recoiled in disgust at the black liquid, how he'd gotten scared and fled from someone who had been so kind to him. He felt terribly guilty. So he decided to be nice to the boy to make up for it, and maybe make Ruvy forgive him. He crouched down next to the kid. "Where does it hurt?" "Behind." Your back hurts?" "Uh-huh." Cautiously, Denzel put his hand to the boy's back. "When my tummy hurt, Mom would always rub it, and it would stop hurting. It was the same with bumps and bruises, although maybe it only works when moms do it. Trying to ignore the black, gooey liquid, he rubbed the boy's back. He could feel him relax, and then the whimpering stopped, and the boy fell asleep. Denzel sat there for ages, maybe 3 hours, maybe more. He kept comforting the kid, taking breaks when his arm got tired. People on the descent would avert their eyes, pretending they didn't see them. "I think he's dead, kiddo." Denzel looked up. A haggard woman was standing over him. She was carrying a baby in a sling and holding hands with a girl around Denzel's age. "He's wearing a girl's shirt," said the daughter. "He's weird. Come on, Mom, can we go?" Without a word, the mother removed the girl's blue coat and offered it to Denzel. "Here, use this." The girl still had 3 layers on, and she looked relieved to be free of one of them. She wiped her sweaty face. "You can have it. It's my sister's anyway, and it's too big for me." Denzel didn't see an older sister. He glanced at the boy curled up beside him. He was too still, and his chest was motionless. Suddenly, Denzel felt enormously tired. The girl took the coat from her mother's hands and draped it over the boy, hiding his body from view. "He's with my sister now. Thank you." It was almost more than Denzel could manage, just to get out that one phrase. The woman was already walking away, and the girl scampered to catch up. She slid her hand into her mother's. Both hands were marked with black stains. Denzel stared at the chocobo picture on the girl's backpack. That black and slimy stuff comes out of people's bodies. They cry because it hurts so much, and then they die. If the sickness is catching, maybe we're all going to die. Back then, no one knew anything about the stigma. Everyone the live stream touched started oozing that black slime, and then died. People said you could get infected by touching it. No one had figured out that it was actually the remnants of Genova corrupting the live stream. Not that it would have made a difference, knowing. Especially for a kid. Right. I kept thinking on the train tracks that I wished I could grow up faster. Then maybe things would make more sense. At least a little bit. Denzel at last reached the groundside station, where he gasped at the tide of refugees that trudged down from the plate and on into the slums. He knew he should keep walking too, but he wanted to linger in the hope of maybe spotting a familiar face in the crowd. But it wasn't long before a gnawing hunger overcame all other considerations, and he began wandering around the station in search of something to eat. He came across a big pile of bags, and beyond that, a cluster of men who appeared to be digging a big hole. The smell of rot hung in the air. Another man came up carrying a young woman slung over his shoulder and gently lowered her into the ground. The men were digging a mass grave. Denzel backed away from the scene and almost fell over the pile of bags and possessions, looking down at his feet. He saw a backpack decorated with a picture of a chocobo. Spurred by a sudden impulse, he grabbed the backpack and looked inside. It was full of cookies and candy. He thought of the girl it belonged to, but she was dead. "Eat while you can." It was Gaskin. Denzel realized he was the person he'd been vaguely hoping to find. "Worried you'll catch the sickness? No one knows if it's actually contagious. It might be, or then again it might not. But one thing's for sure, you've got to eat. Even if you're going to die anyway. Might as well do it on a full stomach," he said as he reached into the backpack and helped himself to a cookie. "Not bad. Best chow down, no point in letting them go to waste." Denzel ate one too. The buttery sweetness was comforting. Still looking down into the backpack, he said, "Thank you." Gaskin ruffled his hair. "He's not like Dad at all, but he ruffles my hair the same way." They ended up staying right there, in the area around the station. His first job was finding food in the abandoned bags and belongings. He banded together with other children like him, orphans with nowhere to go but the streets. Gaskin made friends too. "A bunch of idiots who aren't happy unless they're using their muscles to get stuff done," he said. Some of them were the same men who had been part of the makeshift burial crew at the station. During this time, Denzel occasionally caught himself smiling. It almost felt as if he'd gone back to being his old self. But after a few more weeks, the flow of refugees from Upper Midgar thinned, and there were no more bodies to bury and no more abandoned baggage to search. Gaskin and his crew's role there was coming to an end. Denzel started to get scared again, wondering what would happen next. One day, a man came by, searching the rubble for something. Eventually, he approached Denzel and his friends. "Listen, kids, I need metal pipes, lots of them. Think you can find any? Denzel and his pals went hunting amid the wreckage and ruin of Sector 7. They came back with a fine haul. The man thanked them and left. After that, the man kept coming back, always looking for more parts or materials. Sometimes he'd bring along friends who were also searching for stuff. A new town was going up to the east of Midgar, and they needed materials for its construction. The kids brought whatever they could carry, and the people paid for their finds with food. The Sector 7 scavengers, they called themselves. Jobs were plentiful, and they felt proud to be working and living like adults. Plus it was fun rummaging through the rubble looking for valuable prizes, like treasure hunting. Sure, in the evenings sometimes, one or the other of them might cry for their parents, but they cheered one another up, like friends do, and they started to talk about how they'd be together forever. However, destiny had not tied them together as tightly as they'd thought. One morning, Gaskin assembled his friends, that is, the men in his crew and the kids of the scavengers, and said it was time they moved to the new town so they could help with the construction efforts there. Just when they were starting to reach an agreement, let's do what Gaskin says, one of the kids asked a question. Gaskin, are you sick? The girl had noticed him rubbing his chest as he spoke. Kind of. Gaskin unbuttoned his jacket. Underneath his shirt was soaked black. A month after that, Gaskin was dead. Everyone came together and buried him in a nice spot. It's funny, but it seems like the good people always die first. Reeve nodded solemnly. Denzel took a sip of coffee. He hated coffee. It was so bitter, but he wanted to hurry up and learn to like it, like grown-ups did. The men moved on, but about 20 of the kids stayed behind and continued on as the Sector 7 scavengers. They heard rumors about how the new town of Edge was growing by leaps and bounds, and they knew there were orphanages there. But they knew they were helping with the building efforts right where they were, and they liked getting by on their own wits. They saw no reason to walk away from what they had, and besides, they were too proud to go begging for protection as helpless orphans. Progress, however, marches on, and their way of life was about to come to an end. Childish pride couldn't slow the development of Edge or stop heavy machines being used in the construction. In the time it took Denzel and the crew to haul a single iron girder to a customer, one of the big cranes could lift up a whole house and carry it off. Their numbers steadily dwindled as the children left, one or two at a time, until Denzel looked around one night and saw that only 6 remained of the original crew. And even with these few mouths to feed, they were hungry. Then the last girl announced she was leaving for Edge. Denzel chuckled. What's so funny? Asked Reeve. I hated that girl. The boys said having a girl along slowed them down, but whenever we split into groups, they all wanted to go with her. When there were a lot of us, it didn't matter so much, but toward the end, it was a real pain. Reeve chuckled too. But I realized something now. My being ticked off was a good thing. It meant I'd gotten to the point where I could sweat the small stuff, like in normal life. Maybe you should thank her next time you see her. Can't do that. She's dead now. One morning, he woke up to find that the only scavengers left were him and his pal Rix. All we can handle now are screws and light bulbs, Denzel said, laughing. Rix grinned in reply. Sure, but we'll corner the market and make a killing. I'll go find us some breakfast, and maybe some work too. Okay, hold up. Rix went over to where they stashed their cash box and opened the lid. Shit, Denzel. We've been crossed. They'd been left with nothing, not even enough for a chunk of bread. The two sat for a while in silence. Rix was the first to open his mouth. Guess we've got to go to Edge now. Find one of those charities that gives out food for free. You're giving up? If you want to call it that. I call it not starving to death. Out of nowhere, Denzel recalled something his father had said. We could catch some rats. Rats? Yeah, people in the slums used to do it all the time, right? 'Cause chicken was too expensive. I bet they taste okay, once you cook them. You serious? Yeah, I'm gonna eat a rat. Like a real slum kid. Rick stood up slowly and brushed the dust from his clothes. Denzel got to his feet too, already looking around. We need a stick. You're on your own, bud. This slum kid is moving on. Been an eye-opener, though, finding out what you topsiders thought of us down here. Denzel realized his error and tried to smooth things over. Look, sorry, I didn't mean it like that. You seem clear enough to me. You think folks like my family and me ate rats like we were damn animals. No, that's not it. Well, you don't know nothing about anything, dumbass. You're just another stuck-up brat from the plate. Rix. Here's something else you don't know. Thanks to all the sewage you topsiders flushed down here, the rats are full of really, really bad germs. We wouldn't have dreamed of eating them. With that, Rix left. Denzel sighed. I didn't try to follow him. I figured he wouldn't forgive me. Why not? Because he was right. I still didn't think I belonged down there. I stuck to the neighborhood around my station and the rubble in Sector 7. I never thought of going anywhere else in any of the slums. And I didn't go to Edge because I thought that would be just more of the same, all poor and dirty. What happened to Rix? He's alive, doing okay, but we don't talk. Well, as long as he's around, you still have a chance to patch things up with him. Denzel found a stick, sharpened it into a mean point, and went looking for rats. He really did plan to eat one. Dad, people in the slums don't eat rats, but I will. I don't have money or work. I'm a Sector 7 topsider, but it's just a pile of rocks and broken metal now. I don't belong here. I can't go on living here. Loneliness slowly stole Denzel's will to live. It was like after the fall of Sector 7, but now no one was left to help him. His parents, Arkham, Ruby, Gaskin, the scavengers, they were all gone. And no more good things would ever come for him. He felt like he'd never laugh again. There's no point to a life without laughter. Doesn't matter now. The rats will help me. Them and their really, really bad germs. Whoa, seriously? Cried Johnny, who apparently had been eavesdropping. I'm just saying what I thought at the time. I know I was wrong. I'm still here, after all. Well, yeah, sure. Because someone did come along, Reeve added. Just when things were looking the worst. There wasn't a rat to be found. He kept searching, though, aimlessly and listlessly, until he eventually reached the slums under Sector 5. He found a church there that was starting to fall apart. A motorcycle was parked in front of it. It was like no other bike he'd ever seen before. But what really caught his eye was a cell phone hanging from the handlebars. A smile came to his face. I'll just borrow it for a second. It'd be funny if the call went through. He took the phone and dialed the number of his house, imagining a phone ringing in the rubble of Sector 7. All Sector 7 numbers are out of service. He had asked around for information about his parents when he was working with the scavengers, but he never found out anything. He figured they had been buried under rubble somewhere. It wasn't like he thought they were still alive. All Sector 7 numbers are out of service. With the phone to his ear, Denzel looked up at the underside of Sector 5. Somewhere up there, he realized, Ruby was asleep forever. He was standing beneath her grave. No wonder it felt so lonely here. All Sector 7 numbers are out of service. He hung up. He thought about smashing the phone against the ground. Then he decided against it. Just one more time. Let me try one more. He was going to call Ruby's house, but he couldn't remember her number. Actually, he had never known it in the first place. It occurred to him to scroll through the incoming call history. He decided to call the number at the top. This time, it rang, and the person at the other end quickly picked up. Cloud, what a surprise. You never call. Is something wrong? Denzel silently listened to the woman. Cloud? She asked warily. No. Who is this? What are you doing with Cloud's phone? I don't know. Who are you? I don't know. I don't know what to do, his voice trembled. Are you crying? He thought he felt tears as he closed his eyes to wipe them away. Pain shot through his forehead. It caused him to seize up and drop the phone. He hunched over double, holding his head. He felt something sticky on his hands. I don't really want to die. He tried to scream, but the pain wouldn't let him. So he prayed silently, as hard as he could. Don't let it be the dark stuff. Don't let it be the dark stuff. Bracing himself against the throbbing pain, he opened his eyes. The palms of his hands were inky black. I don't remember anything after that. When I woke up, I was in a real bed. Tifa and Marlene were looking at me. The rest, you know already, right? More or less. I'd be dead 10 times over. If it weren't for all the people who helped me, my parents, Ruby, Gaskin, the guys in the scavengers, people who are still alive, and people who aren't. Tifa and Cloud and Marlene even. Reeve nodded like he knew already. I want to help people like people have helped me. It's my turn to do the protecting. Reeve was silent. Please, let me join. Denzel leaned forward in determination. No way, man, Johnny interjected. You stay out of it, Denzel snapped. You're just a kid. That doesn't matter. Actually, said Reeve, the WRO no longer enlists minors. Aha, see? Why didn't you just tell me that in the first place? Said Denzel sullenly. Because it's a brand new policy. In fact, I decided it just now, while I was listening to your story. There are some things only kids can do, and I think you should be doing them. Like what? Like helping grown-ups be strong when we need to be. Denzel waited for him to say more, but Reeve stood up to indicate the talk was over. Oh, one other thing, Reeve began. Denzel stared at him expectantly. Thank you for taking care of my mother. Reeve took a folded handkerchief from his own pocket and flicked it open. The fabric was covered in a familiar pattern of tiny pink flowers. After Reeve left, Johnny began clearing the table. Denzel stared at his own handkerchief laid out in front of him. You know, kiddo, Johnny said, you can fight whenever and wherever you want, if that's what you're itching to do. What's so special about the WRO that you want to sign up? Cloud. What about him? He was in the military once. I figure that's why he's so strong. I want to be strong like him. Thing is, kid, times are changing. Like how? Well, let's see. Some guys can swing a mean sword and chase off monsters, while some guys are better looking after folk and taking away their pain. I'm thinking that, in times like these, the ladies will choose the latter over the former. I'm not doing it to try to get girls, sheesh, Denzel said stiffly, but he was thinking of the people who'd ruffled his hair, the people who'd held his hand, the people who had made him feel liked when the world seemed to be falling apart. Whether they were men or women, grown-ups or kids, weren't those people the strongest of all? Livestream Black 1. He could feel the livestream incessantly trying to erode his spirit, his experiences, thoughts, emotions, and memories. If he gave himself over to the pull of the current, everything he was would be subsumed. His existence dissolved into the great spirit energy that circled through the planet. He would not let that happen. The planet was there to be ruled. To give it his own energy was to concede defeat. He felt the surge in the life stream, a great upheaval, a sign he knew of another defeat. When the life stream burst out above ground, it meant Cloud's victory was more secure than ever. Cloud had twice sent him into the life stream, and he would not allow it to happen again. If he could only cling to the core of his consciousness, he could keep himself apart from the abyss and stay free of the planet and its insatiable appetite. He had made his decision. Cloud would become the nucleus. He yearned to tell Cloud this. I have not forgotten you. You are still in my mind. You do not know this yet, but soon you will. This is UncleWooly. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the content, please consider liking the video and subscribing so you don't miss out on future episodes of Final Fantasy VII, On the Way to a Smile.